all people ever want to talk about is the quarterback.
Yep.
He's not the only player on the field. Purdy is very good at what he is. Their run game is what the main issue is right now. If the offense can't run the football, it puts him in a really difficult spot. If there's no fully dimensional offense, he won't play as well as he can play. So everybody wants to say, well, that's Brock Purdy's fault.
What did you see with Brock Purdy last week in what was clearly not a great performance for him?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you guys, and I know you got to do this because you're on the radio every day, but the week-to-week stuff with Brock Purdy is gets a little silly to me, because I almost feel like people talk about Brock Purdy as if, well, he's not really that good, so if he has a good game, yeah, let's wait and see then what he's going to do next week. I mean, Brock Purdy's their starting quarterback. He's a good player. I mean, I think if you pretty much talk to almost anybody, they'll tell you he's a good player. Was he as sharp as he normally is in this game, and he had just come back, and we have no idea how the injuries affected him? He wasn't as sharp as he normally is working between the numbers. There were throws he was a little wild high. I don't know if that's a function of his toe, his shoulder. I can't speak to that. But to me, the much larger issue for this team, and almost every quarterback in the league is like this, they need a running game. They cannot run the football. There's no sustainability. There's no consistency. They're one of the worst rushing teams in the league right now. McCaffrey is, I think, at the bottom of the league in terms of yards before first contact. He's not getting past the first level of the defense. His first contact on average is 1.47 yards. Think about that. Okay, so their run game is what the main issue is right now, because Purdy, as I said, almost every quarterback is, with very few exceptions, is a ball distributor and an executor of a well-schemed offense. And if the offense can't run the football, it puts him in a really difficult spot.
And I'm thinking about the ETN run where they executed it perfectly. They got to that second level, took the safeties out of it. Is that what the Niners are lacking right now, Greg? The ability to beat the defensive lineman and get to that second level and seal off a lane for McCaffrey?
Yeah, they can't get him to the second level with any consistency at all. And even if he does manage to just get through that first level, it's not really clean. He's sort of, fighting through to do that. So he's not able to re-accelerate, which is a strength of his game, the ability to re-accelerate in traffic, and he's not able to do that. But to me, that is the bigger issue. You know how it is, guys, and you deal with this every day. You're on the radio every day. All people want to talk about, I get into this conversation every week with Colin Cowherd. All people ever want to talk about is the quarterback.
Yep.
He's not the only player on the field. And, I think we get caught up in analyzing the quarterback every single week as if he's the only player that matters. And in this particular case, Purdy is very good at what he is, okay? But if there's no fully formed, fully dimensional offense, he won't play as well as he can play. It's just it's a simple statement. And, so everybody wants to say, well, that's Brock Purdy's fault. No, it's not Brock Purdy's fault.
I agree with you. Let's talk about that run game. What some of the characteristics are of their struggles that you see and what you think needs to sort of change there. What's the fix? Is it expanding the passing game to keep a defense honest? Does the O-line need to play better? I'm sure it's a lot of all those things, but what are you really focused on?
I mean, as you guys know, when you're struggling in an area, it's never one thing. Like, you can't just say, oh, it's this guy. And I'm certainly not Chris Foster, who certainly knows a lot more about O-line play than I do. So I don't want to sit here and say, well, this guy's not playing well, because I don't know that for a fact. And obviously, I'm not charting every single snap and all 5 offensive linemen. All I can tell you is, as a group, there's not really first-level gaps for McCaffrey to run through. They're not there. So they're trying to run multiple kinds of runs. They're running inside. They're trying to get him on the perimeter. I mean, they're clearly searching for the run game for ways to get McCaffrey out on, get him some space. But right now, there's not a lot of space. And it's just a really hard deal. So they're caught up in a lot of longer yardage situations. They're not staying ahead of the chains. And that also makes it harder for Kyle Shanahan or any coordinator to call plays, because contrary to what people might think, every situation has a core group of plays. In other words, when it's 3rd and 6, the quarterback knows he's going to get one of 6 concepts. He's not getting one of 40 concepts. He's getting one of 6 concepts. That's the way it is on almost every down and distance. So it just makes it harder to really call plays and feel comfortable about it if you're behind the chains.
Especially now that you're going to a backup quarterback. And I just want to ask you, Greg, what you've seen on the film. 2 games of Brock Purdy, he won't play. 2 games of Mac Jones. What have you seen from Mac that the Niners can maybe lean on tomorrow night?
Yeah, and I think in some ways he's similar. I mean, obviously when they beat, I guess it was New Orleans, which has proven not to be a very good team up to this point. Still an NFL team, though, and you got to beat who's on your schedule. I thought he made some good throws in that game. We talked about the Jennings touchdown that I guess was the sort of sealed the victory, which was a really good play by Mac Jones in terms of reading the defense as it changed from one look to another look. But Mac Jones in some ways is very similar stylistically to Brock Purdy. They're going to need to be able to run, and if they can't, it just becomes harder. It's just, I'll give you an example. I think everybody would say correctly that Josh Allen is one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in football.
Yep.
Do you know that the Bills lead the NFL in rushing attempts and in rushing yards? Okay. Now, but people would obviously say, oh, man, Josh Allen. I've had this conversation with people who still think that, if Josh Allen isn't Superman, they can't win. Well, meanwhile, they run the ball more and better than any team in the league. And last year, they had a run-pass ratio where they had more runs than passes. So, it's just the reality of the NFL that the way teams are playing defense, too, is it's harder to create explosive plays in the pass game. We did a study for the Matchup Show where over the last 2-3 years, which maybe is a trend, 2-3 years one could say is a trend, there's been fewer and fewer 20-plus yard completions each and every year going back 2-3 years. The game is, I don't want to say it's changing. Obviously, all offensive coaches want big plays and explosive plays, but the run game seems to be becoming increasingly more important in the way the game is being played because of the way defenses are structured. And you've got to be able to run the football to some degree.
Greg, I'm glad that you're talking defense. I'd like to ask you about the 49er defense because to my untrained eye, the biggest issue that scared me last week was the inability for the 49ers to generate any sort of a pass rush. No sacks, no QB hits, and this is obviously coinciding with Nick Bosa going out. So how would you describe the difference in the way that pass rush looked without him there?
Well, the bottom line is they were unable to generate any consistent pressure on Lawrence, which is a shame because Lawrence really struggles when there are people around him. Because Lawrence is, he's one of those mid-range quarterbacks who needs everything to work right. You get people around him, he struggles a lot. But, they decided really not to rush the quarterback in terms of pressure. Like in the first half, Lawrence had 20 dropbacks. The 49ers only rushed 5 on 2 of those 20 dropbacks. So they decided to sort of stay with, what Robert Saleh's approach is. I know that's been a bone of contention through the last couple of years with another coordinator who didn't want to rush the quarterback and didn't want to blitz. But that's the way they chose to play, and they weren't able to generate any pressure whatsoever. Now, I've been told over the years by coaches, people a lot smarter than I am, that if you can't get there with 4, you got to add a 5th guy because at some point you got to impact the quarterback. If you can't impact the quarterback, you could be great on the back end. And obviously they were missing Green last week, so they played Luter. If you can't impact the quarterback in any way, most quarterbacks in this league will probably find a way to complete passes.
He completed passes, but for only 174 yards.
I know.
And, honestly, the defense really only gave up 19 points. It was a special teams gaffe that cost him. So will the bend but don't break approach work against Matthew Stafford tomorrow night, or do they have to try something else, in your opinion?
Well, you got to get people around Matthew Stafford. You guys, know Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford may be the most respected quarterback in the league, believe it or not, by coaches, which is not the same as saying he's the best. You can get into that conversation. I don't get into best, second best. I don't do that. But he is a big-time NFL quarterback, maybe on his way to the Hall of Fame. And when he has time to throw the football, he is phenomenal. And number one, he's an aggressive thrower, so he's going to make throws. Now, every once in a while, he'll throw a pick because, hey, he's an aggressive thrower. but he can make throws, and he makes big-time throws. So you better find a way to get people around him and make him feel like he has to speed up a little bit. Hey, sure, sacks are great, and you'd love to get them, but you're trying to impact the quarterback. You're trying to make him play faster mentally, because then, in a sense, you want him to play faster mentally and physically. It's because Stafford's seen everything, so you're not necessarily going to slow him down mentally, but you just want him to play faster physically.
Right.
And if you can't do that, it's going to be tough.